Kira had been 7 years old when the Piracy warships burned her colony to ash. She remembered the orange sky, the screaming, and the way her mother pushed her into the underground shelter before the flames took everything. Now she was 23, and she sat in a cold metal cell aboard one of those same warships, waiting to die. The Piracy were masters of fire. Their bodies radiated heat that could melt steel. Their weapons turned entire cities into infernos. For 300 years, they had conquered the galaxy through pure destructive force. No species had ever defeated them in battle. No treaty had ever been signed on equal terms. The Piracy took what they wanted and burned the rest. They called themselves the Fire Masters, and they believed they were gods. Kira looked at her hands. She was small for a human, thin from years of running and hiding. She had no weapons, no army, no ship. All she had was her mind, and the desperate plan she had built over 16 years of hatred and study. A Piracy guard opened her cell door. The creature stood 8 feet tall, its red skin glowing with internal heat. Its 4 eyes looked at her with contempt. "The High Flame summons you, human," it said. "You claim to have information about Earth's defenses. He will hear your lies before he burns your homeworld." Kira stood slowly. "Take me to him." The guard grabbed her arm. His touch burned her skin, but she did not cry out. She had trained herself to endure pain. She had trained herself to endure everything. The warship was massive, a floating fortress of black metal and fire. Kira counted the guards as she walked. She memorized the corridors. She noted the placement of every fire suppression system, every emergency seal, every weak point in the ship's design. She had studied Piracy engineering for years, stealing data fragments and intercepted transmissions. She knew the ship better than the creatures who built it. The throne room of the High Flame was a chamber of living fire. Flames danced on the walls and floor, hot enough to kill an unprotected human in seconds. But Kira wore a cooling suit beneath her prisoner clothes, a device she had built herself from stolen parts. It would keep her alive for exactly 12 minutes. The High Flame sat on a throne of molten rock. He was the largest Piracy Kira had ever seen, his body blazing with power. Around him stood his 12 war advisors, the commanders who had burned 100 worlds. "So this is the human spy," the High Flame said. His voice crackled like a wildfire. "You killed 3 of my soldiers to send us a message. You said you would trade Earth's secrets for your life." Kira bowed her head. "Yes, Great Flame. I have the defense codes for Earth's orbital stations. I have the locations of the hidden military bases. I have everything you need to conquer humanity in a single strike. And why would you betray your own species?" "Because Earth abandoned me." Kira let anger fill her voice. It was not hard. The anger was real, even if her target was different. 16 years ago, your ships destroyed Colony 7. I was the only survivor. I begged Earth for rescue, for justice, for war against you. They refused. They said I was not worth the risk. They left me to die in the darkness between stars. The High Flame leaned forward. His eyes burned with interest. "So you want revenge against your own kind. I want to watch them burn, as I watched my family burn." Kira met his gaze without flinching. "I will give you everything. All I ask is that you let me watch." The war advisors whispered among themselves. The High Flame raised a burning hand for silence. "You are clever, human, but I am not foolish. How do I know these codes are real? How do I know this is not a trap?" "Test them," Kira said. "Send a scout ship to coordinates I provide. If the information is false, you lose nothing but 1 ship. If it is true, you gain everything." The High Flame considered this. Kira held her breath. This was the moment her entire plan balanced on. If he refused, she would die here, and Earth would follow. "Very well," the High Flame said. "Give us the coordinates for this test." Kira smiled. "Station Gamma 7, on the edge of the Sol System. A small listening post, poorly defended. but its destruction will prove my information is accurate. The High Flame gestured to one of his advisors. Send the Red Claw to these coordinates. If the human speaks truth, we prepare for full invasion. The advisor bowed and left the chamber. Kira felt her heart pounding beneath the cooling suit. Phase 1 was complete. You will remain here until we receive confirmation, the High Flame said. If you have lied, your death will be slow and legendary. I have not lied, Kira said, but I have a request. I wish to observe your tactical planning. I want to see how the Fire Masters prepare for conquest. Consider it payment for my services. The High Flame laughed, a sound like exploding stars. You wish to learn our secrets? Bold for a prisoner. I am not a prisoner. I am an ally. Treat me as such, and I will serve you better. Another long pause. The flames danced higher around the throne. Then the High Flame nodded. You amuse me, human. Very well. You may observe. But if you try to escape, if you touch anything without permission, I will burn you myself. I understand. They gave her quarters near the command center. Not a cell, but not freedom either. Guards watched her constantly, their heat signatures visible through the walls of her room. Kira spent the next 3 days learning everything she could about the warship's operations. The Pirathi were arrogant. They believed their mastery of fire made them invincible. They never considered that someone might use their own weapons against them. They never imagined that a small, weak human could be dangerous. On the 4th day, news came from the scout ship. Station Gamma 7 had been destroyed exactly as Kira predicted. The defense code she provided had worked perfectly. The High Flame summoned her to the throne room once more. Your information was accurate, he said. There was respect in his voice now, the grudging acknowledgement of a useful tool. We begin the invasion of Earth in 10 cycles. You will provide the remaining codes. Of course, Kira said. But there is something else I must tell you. Something that will make your victory even greater. Speak. Kira stepped closer to the throne. The flames licked at her cooling suit, draining its power. She had 6 minutes left. The humans have a secret weapon, she said. A device that can extinguish any fire, even Pirathi fire. They plan to use it when you attack Earth, but I know where it is stored. I can disable it before the invasion. The High Flame's eyes narrowed. Why did you not mention this before? Because I needed to prove my loyalty first. Now you trust me. Now I can help you destroy the last hope of humanity. The war advisors murmured excitedly. A weapon that could extinguish Pirathi fire was their greatest fear, the one thing that could threaten their supremacy. If such a device existed, it must be destroyed. The High Flame stood from his throne. Molten rock dripped from his body. Show me, he commanded. Show me where this weapon is hidden. Kira smiled. The trap was set. Now she just needed to spring it. Follow me to the command center, she said. I will show you everything. The war advisors followed, eager to see this human weapon that threatened their power. They left their guards behind, too proud to believe they needed protection from a single human. The High Flame walked beside Kira, his flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. In the command center, Kira approached the main tactical display. Her hands trembled slightly as she entered commands into the system. The Pirathi watched with hungry eyes. The weapon is stored here, Kira said, pointing to a location on the star map, deep beneath the Earth's northern ice cap. It is called Project Snowfall. Snowfall, the High Flame repeated. A fitting name for a fire killer. Yes, and now I will show you how to destroy it. Kira entered one final command. The display changed, showing a complex schematic of the Pirathi warship itself. The High Flame frowned. What is this? This, Kira said softly, is your death. She pressed the activation key. Every fire suppression system on the ship activated simultaneously. Chemical foam designed to suffocate flames flooded every corridor, every chamber, every room. Emergency seals slammed shut. trapping the Pyrrhi in compartments filled with flame-killing gas. The high flame roared in fury and pain. His fire flickered, dimmed, began to die. He reached for Kira with burning hands, but she was already moving, dodging beneath his grasp and running for the door. "You tricked us!" he screamed. "There is no weapon." "You're wrong," Kira called back over her shoulder. "There is a weapon. It's me." She sealed the command center behind her. The high flame and his advisors were trapped, their flames dying in the chemical flood. Throughout the ship, Pyrrhi warriors collapsed as their internal fires guttered out. They were creatures of heat and flame. Without fire, they were nothing. Kira ran through corridors filled with foam and dying aliens. She had memorized every path, every shortcut, every escape route. She reached the hangar bay in 4 minutes, found a small shuttle, and launched into space. Behind her, the great warship went dark. Its engines failed. Its weapons fell silent. The mightiest vessel in the Pyrrhi fleet drifted lifeless among the stars. Kira set course for Earth. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was calm. 16 years she had planned this moment. 16 years of study and sacrifice and pain. She had let the Pyrrhi capture her. She had given them real information, sacrificed a small listening post to gain their trust. She had played the role of traitor so perfectly that even the high flame believed her. And now the Fire Masters would learn what humans could do when they were angry. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The high flame was dead. His warship was captured. The Pyrrhi fleet was in chaos, suddenly leaderless and terrified. For the first time in 300 years, the Fire Masters knew fear. Earth's military moved quickly. They had been preparing for this moment ever since Kira first contacted them with her plan. Hidden fleets launched from secret bases. Allies who had been waiting for a sign of weakness joined the fight. The Pyrrhi Empire, built on fear and fire, began to crumble. Kira watched the reports from a hospital bed on Earth. She had suffered burns over 40% of her body. Her lungs were damaged from the chemical foam. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive. She did not feel lucky. She felt empty. A general came to visit her, a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She sat beside Kira's bed and looked at her with something like wonder. "You changed everything," the general said. "One person against an empire. How did you know it would work?" Kira stared at the ceiling. "I didn't know. I just knew I had to try. The Pyrrhi are surrendering across the sector. Their home world is negotiating peace terms. For the first time in history, they are asking for mercy instead of demanding tribute. Good." The general leaned closer. "You could be anything now. A hero, a leader, a symbol. What do you want, Kira?" Kira thought about her mother pushing her into the shelter. She thought about the 16 years of cold and darkness and fury. She thought about the moment when the high flame's fire went out, and she felt nothing but emptiness. "I want to go home," she whispered. "But I don't have a home anymore." The general was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took Kira's bandaged hand. "Then we'll build you a new one. Earth owes you that much. The galaxy owes you that much." In the weeks that followed, the Pyrrhi Empire collapsed completely. Species they had conquered for centuries rose up against them. Treaties were signed. Territories were liberated. The Fire Masters became just another fallen empire in the long history of the galaxy. And Kira became something else entirely. She did not want to be a symbol. She refused the medals and the speeches and the monuments. Instead, she asked for something simple. She asked to help rebuild Colony 7, the world where she had been born, the world the Pyrrhi had burned. Earth agreed. 5 years later, Kira stood on a hillside covered with young trees. The sky above Colony 7 was blue now, not the orange of fire and death. Children played in the valley below, children who would never know the terror of Pyrrhi warships. A young girl approached her, carrying a flower she had picked from the meadow. "Are you the fire killer?" the girl asked. My mother says you saved everyone. Kira knelt down to the girl's level. Her scars were visible on her arms and neck, permanent reminders of what she had endured. I'm just a person, Kira said. Like you. Like everyone. But you beat the Fire Masters. Nobody could beat them. Kira took the flower and smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. The Perithi believed they were gods because they could destroy things. But destruction is easy. Anyone can burn a forest. It takes something special to plant one. The girl looked confused. Kira laughed softly and stood up. Go play, she said. Be happy. That's how we really win. The girl ran off to join her friends. Kira watched her go, feeling something warm in her chest that had nothing to do with fire. She had spent 16 years learning to destroy. Now she would spend the rest of her life learning to build. The Perithi had called themselves Fire Masters. They had believed that flame was the ultimate power, that those who could burn brightest would rule forever. They had been wrong. Humanity had shown the galaxy a different kind of strength. Not the strength of destruction, but the strength of persistence. The strength of adaptation. The strength of a small, weak species that refused to surrender, refused to accept defeat, refused to stop fighting even when all hope seemed lost. One orphaned girl had outsmarted an empire. One human mind had changed galactic politics forever. And in the end, the Fire Masters learned the lesson that every tyrant eventually learns. Fire burns hot, but it burns out. Humanity endures. Kira planted a tree in the meadow, adding one more life to the world the Perithi had tried to destroy. Then she walked down the hillside to help with the day's work, just another person in a community of survivors, building something that would last longer than any empire. The sun set over Colony 7, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Not the orange of fire, but the colors of peace. And somewhere in the rebuilt homes and schools and hospitals, children learned a new story. The story of the orphan who killed an empire. The story of the girl who proved that courage and intelligence were more powerful than any weapon. The story of humanity and why the galaxy had learned to respect them at last.